really wanted to share this project with you guys. I purchased this cabinet off of Amazon, and yes, you do have to put it together. I wanted to go ahead and transform it into a humidor. I needed a bigger humidor for my cigar collection, so this is what I decided to use. It does come with some extra shelves that I did not use and a drawer. I used the shelves as a guide to cut down the Spanish cedar so that I could make sure it did not go beyond the point of where the door would be closing. I glued all of those down, and as you guys can see here, I am almost finished. I ran out of Spanish cedar to do the under portions, so I needed another box of 5 Spanish cedar planks in order to complete the project. In total, I used 42 planks, which was about 4.5 boxes. There is some gapping along the sides, which I did fill in with silicone, but honestly, if I had to do it all over again, I would find some way to retrofit maybe some smaller pieces of cedar in there. As I kind of began to figure out how I wanted to proceed with the shelving for this project, I used some scrap pieces just to kind of give me an idea of what it was I wanted to do. As you guys can see here, I'll be using a couple of pieces of wood in order to create the shelves. I purchased a humidor for someone, and this is kind of how the shelves were made up, so it was really easy to kind of do it that way. Here I added my silicone to the corners, and here I'm kind of dry fitting. I actually at one point was going to do a total of 8 shelves, but then I decided to go ahead and go with the 6 so that I would have more room to pull everything in and out. So I'm glad I did the dry fit first so I can get an idea of what it is I wanted to have done before I glued these pieces down. I had a few floating pieces that did not have anything to hold them in place or anything for them to rest on. So I used some extra pieces of the Spanish cedar and created what I call a brace for those pieces. I glued that piece down and then glued the 2 pieces together, and it created a brace to prevent those from sliding down. As you guys can see, I've added my side brackets to the project. Here I am marking where I'll be making my cuts, and then I'll go ahead and glue those pieces down as well. For the lock, I needed to mark where I was going to be making my cuts. So as you guys can see here, I'm just marking where the cuts are going to be so that I can go ahead and get that cut and then get these pieces also installed. In order to paint the door appropriately and put the stencil on there, I needed to remove the door. It had these tabs on there with tiny little screws. So I had a tiny little screwdriver on hand that I used to take those off. One of the other things I wanted to do before I put this door back on was put some silicone around the opening because of course you want to have as few gaps as possible. These are the lights that I went with. I could have chosen a few different options, but my biggest thing was I didn't want to add some type of switch, and I did not want a remote control that I had to go looking for. So I chose a door activated light system, and it has a sensor on it. So whenever you open the door, then the lights will come on and light up the humidor for you. The light kit actually comes with pretty much everything that you need. As you guys can see, I'm pulling all kinds of stuff out of this box. It has 6 lights. I actually only ended up needing 4. It has 3 different ways that you're able to attach these lights. So it just has everything that you really need. Before installing the lights, I needed to figure out the configuration. Once I got that, how I wanted it to be, I had to drill a hole in order to connect the 2 lights between the shelving. I seriously thought the motion sensor for this was just so cool. Initially, I had it up top, then I realized that I was going to need to place that down below. So with this sensor, if you cover it up, then the lights cut off. And if it's not, then they cut back on. So anytime the door is open, it will turn on, and if the door is closed. So you want to make sure that it's somewhere where it won't be blocked. I decided to attach it at the top of the bottom shelf so that it would be out of the way, it wouldn't be blocked by anything, and I would not hit it whenever I was putting trays or cigars or whatever into the humidor. I created a template in order to cut the hole for the outlet, fitting it on the back. Now it's time to install it on the front. And of course, I'm adding silicone to prevent any air leaks. I decided to try out a chalk paint, and I actually really liked it. I got Rust-Oleum in the color Aged Gray. It really kind of gives your item a weathered look. I do suggest priming your item first, because 2 things happened to me with this. One, once I put on the polyurethane, it bled, and 2, I could see the brown, so I had to actually paint mine more than once. So you want something else underneath that. I also painted the handles. I took those outside and spray painted them. Now it is time to move on to the final leg of this project. I created this image using Paint Shop Pro and cut it with my Cricut. So here you guys see I am going ahead and releasing my stencil onto the glass, and then I'll go ahead and apply my etching cream for 3 minutes, and then you just go ahead and rinse that off. I placed a bead of silicone around the entire framing of the door, and now the glass is ready to be placed. I decided on this combination lock. It seemed like the simplest for what it is I need it for, and it's actually really easy to set. You just use this pin, you choose your code, and that's pretty much it. I did have a small issue. The lock is wider than the door frame, so one of the screws I could not put in there, but it's really secure. I was having a hard time finding a lock that would work for this piece, but I don't mind it at all. You have to make sure that your code is set in order to turn the knob at all. So in order to lock or unlock it, you do need to have it on its code. It works pretty good. It's pretty secure. It is pretty sturdy. So right now at this point, I like it. Because I have a shelf in the middle of the humidor, I decided that 2 humidifiers would be best in order to maintain humidity throughout the whole piece. This bottom piece is where you would actually put your distilled water, and then you just cover it with the top that's provided. I have my power cords here, and here is the charging block. I decided not to use the charging block, so I didn't need the thin ribbon cable. I used the USB because it just allows for more room inside of the back of my humidor. This is Very simple, you just plug it in. I have 4 hygrometers, 2 digital and 2 Bluetooth. The bigger one was given to me, and then I went ahead and bought a smaller one. Each one is on each level of the humidor. So the Bluetooth ones, they actually come two in a pack. They work with an app that's on your phone, and it gives you the dew point, it gives you the humidity, and it also gives you, of course, the temperature and the VPD. As you can see, these are fairly small. They do have a little opening so you can hang them somewhere if you want to. I've chosen not to do that, but they're very simple to set up. I labeled one top and the other one bottom. Here I'm just releasing the battery so I can get them set up in the app. As always, I am testing everything as I go along to make sure that everything is working appropriately. I have my humidifiers in here. I wanted to see how those would plug up, make sure everything plugs up appropriately. I don't have my trays at this point, but it pretty much gives me a pretty good idea of how everything's going to look. Of course, I still need some final touches. I wanted to try out the lights and see how those would look once those were on. And here we have the final product. I used a piece of veneer in order to hide the change in the wood on that middle shelf. Overall, I am extremely happy with the way that it turned out, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This did not initially start out as any kind of tutorial, so forgive me with that. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask me, and I will answer any questions that you may have. All links are in my description box.